Okay, I'd like to introduce my great uncle, former Lance Corporal Dennis Pfeil of the U.S. Marine Corps, and I'd like to thank you for
Okay, yeah.
taking me
Glad
and
to be here.
letting me talk with you and everything.
Yeah, glad to help you out. And uh, I know you have a few questions you want to ask, and well, let's see if we can get some things going here.
Okay.
Okay.
So, first of all, when did you serve?
I went in the Marine Corps in March of '66, and I got out of active duty in February of '68. It was 2 years enlistment at the time, and that was my active duty time. And I served 4 years in active duty in the reserves.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then obviously, where did you serve? In Vietnam, but more specific, I guess.
Yeah, well, after training at Paris Island and going to learning to be an artilleryman, which they decided to make me an artilleryman, I was sent over to Vietnam in September of '67, and I served 13 months in the Republic of Vietnam.
Okay. And then I guess your specialty was artillery.
I was a artillery batteryman, which the Marine Corps designation is 0811. So we fired 105 howitzers.
Okay. And going back to before you were in and everything, what were right before you were about to leave? What were your feelings leaving home?
Well, I decided to join the Marine Corps. I always wanted to be a Marine, way back when, and so it was my decision to join. And I knew the war in Vietnam was going on, but never thought about what might have happened or anything like that. As far as that, I didn't even realize I would probably even go to Vietnam, which I probably should have, but I didn't. And so I was kind of like excited and proud to become a Marine, and so that was probably foremost in my mind going in.
Okay. And then what battalion, like what designation of Marines were you stationed with when you were over there?
Once I got to Vietnam, I was in the 3rd Marine Division, 1st Battalion, 12th Marines, and I was part of Charlie Battery. And later on, after about 6 months in country, maybe 7 months in country, I was moved to Headquarters Battery. And what I did there was I didn't know that I possessed a secret clearance, and the Marine Corps had me run messages throughout the I-Corps area to various outposts, and so I finished up doing that last few months of in country.
Mm-hmm. How were your relations and everything with your fellow Marines at the time?
Oh, it was great. I mean, when you get in country, you're all in the same boat, and you all try to make it home. And it couldn't have been any better.
Okay. And I guess this could go for either like the entire length of the time you were serving, or right at the beginning. But what were your feelings on the Viet Cong?
Well, when you're that young, I was 19. You don't have any real political feelings at the time. You know, you're sent over and you get involved in combat, and basically you just try to survive. And I didn't really have any feelings towards them then, other than they were the enemy, and I had to kill them before they killed me. So at that time.
Um, so this question is also one that could go, or actually this one might be more towards at once you were towards the end of your service and you knew you were going home. How do you feel that the Vietnam War was compared to, say, like all the other wars the U.S. has been involved in?
That's a good question. I probably didn't think about comparing things like that until later on in my older years.
Okay, well,
But at that time, when you look back, you see the things that maybe should have been done to win the war sooner, and things that what were not done, and prolong the war. And probably the first thing that comes to mind was if we wanted to win, we probably should have invaded the North. And which that wasn't, as a Marine, you don't have that call. That's way over your head. But looking back, you might think that. And but then again, would have been worth it? That's the question.
okay, so this like is just another way of the other question, but now knowing like how do you feel it was compared to the other wars?
Well, I think if you again if you compare it to World War II or uh, our objective in World War II obviously was to stop Hitler and the Japanese from taking over the world, and the military had no bars held. I mean, they were able to do what they needed to do to conquer the enemy. And in Vietnam, there was rules of engagement we had to go by, which hampered the efficiency of our troops and kept us from probably winning the war sooner. So that's the main difference was the rules of engagement.
Okay. Now, the rules of engagement. Do you want to just like go over what like how they were like different in Vietnam and what you could do and you couldn't do concerning you guys versus the Viet Cong and all that?
Well, an example of that was being stationed up in the DMZ, which is very close to the North Vietnamese border. When you get attacked by the NVA, they would be able to retreat back into their own country, and we could not pursue them because part of the rules of engagement was U.S. military forces were not to enter North Vietnamese borders. So that obviously is kind of puts a hampering on your troops when you can't chase the enemy, and they can go back, refuel, and resupply, and then come back and hit you another day. So there's no way you could possibly ever win under that type of rules of engagement. That's what I'm saying. Compared to World War II, where I'm sure they didn't stop General Patton from chasing Hitler all the way back to Berlin.
Okay. And your day-to-day routine as an artilleryman, I guess, how was that? Like, was there anything?
Well, you're up most of the night on a gun, on gun watch. During the day, you clean your parapet and clean the shells, clean the gun. You might have a fire mission at any moment in time. You're there to support the rifle companies out in the field, and so you really don't have any time off. It's a constant 24-hour thing. So you had time to sleep when you weren't engaged, and everything was ready to go. And so there was really no downtime, so to speak. And but that was the way of life. Life was, you know. And you might be stationed at one fire base, and then for whatever reason you might have to pack up, move all your battery to set up another fire base, 10 miles in another direction. So you're always on a go. There wasn't really any downtime.
Okay. And you were saying how you wanted to be a Marine all your life and everything, then you finally joined up and everything. And when you were serving in Vietnam, I mean, obviously war isn't fun, but was there any part of your service that you enjoyed? Like,
oh yeah.
particularly?
Well, even in Vietnam, I mean, war is a funny thing. I mean, it's there's a lot of downtime when nothing's happening, and then all of a sudden, shit hits the fan, and you're into it. So the downtime there's some good times. Time to write letters. Talk to your buddies. I can remember one of the times that the Marine Corps is big at celebrating their birthday, November 10th, 1775. And no matter where you're at, they try to help celebrate. And we were at a fire base, a place called Camp Carroll, and they choppered in steaks, and we had steak and beer for the Marine Corps birthday. That made everybody really happy. So it was things like that you don't forget, and so it's that type of thing, so there is some good times over there. I mean, it isn't all like, you're every moment of your life you were in some kind of battle, but when you were, you knew it. So, that's how I get into that.
The U.S. soldiers when they came over and they were helping the Southern Vietnamese rebels, I guess, or
what
would they be considered rebels or soldiers or?
What, the South Vietnamese Army?
Yeah.
They were considered the Army of the South Vietnamese, known as the Ardens, and they were our ally. We were there to help them fight the Viet Cong, which was the guerrilla group, communist guerrilla group, and the North Vietnamese, known as the NVA. So the Army of the Republic of Vietnam, they were our allies, so to speak.
Okay. How were relations between U.S. soldiers and Vietnamese soldiers?
From what I remember, we didn't have any real close relationship with them, being an artillery battery. But I know that we really didn't think much of the Arvins, because there wasn't we really didn't see a whole lot of patriotism there, so when you don't see that, and then you're going over there to help them, and they're reluctant to jump on that chopper to go out on a fire mission, and you're there, and your Marines are going out there and pretty much fighting the battle for them. So you don't really have this great relationship. You really don't see it. Now, on the other hand, I'm sure there were some patriotic Arvin soldiers who fought to the death, but generally speaking, that was what we would see.
Okay. So the conditions of Vietnam, as you said before, you'd go from 1 minute being at peace, and then the next minute you'd be fighting, and then how were the conditions of Vietnam? Like, how did they affect that, and then how did it have an effect on you and all the other Marines, like their morale and their
Well,
spirituality?
when in an artillery battery, uh, two things happen very quickly. Uh, Both are fire missions. When you have a rifle company out in the bush who get hit, uh, they call for a fire mission to help them. All hell breaks loose. You go to the guns, and then you're firing. You're firing to help those guys and get them out of trouble as much as you can. That's that moves. You move real fast then. And then another time is, well, guess what? The enemy knows where you're at, and then they start lobbing stuff in on your battery. Well, we end up firing back at them. So it becomes a battle between whoever's lobbing artillery or rockets in on your battery. You're firing back at them, and that gets pretty hectic then because you're getting incoming and then you're firing back. That's probably the worst time I ever had over there is firing back at the enemy when we'll take an incoming at the same time. Now, it makes things really crazy, but yeah, that's what you have to do.
Okay. And then obviously you said your artillery or your weapon that you were using was the howitzer with 105 shells.
Yeah, 105 millimeter howitzers. They were they were a big gun, and of course there were bigger guns, 155s, but I was on a 105. They have tracks. You're pulled around by a big truck, you know, when you move things, and they set them in. They have trails, and so they're a big gun.
Okay, we're here with former Lance Corporal Denny Pfeil, and we're doing the second part of this interview, and I guess we'd like to start. We finished the last interview just getting into your the weapons and all this equipment you had over in Vietnam as an artilleryman. I guess, can you go into more detail of what you used?
Well, that was pretty much it. The 105 howitzer is our weapon that we were trained in and we fired. So, I guess we discussed about when we fired and when we didn't fire and all that stuff. I was on a gun crew for about 7 months out of my tour, and then I was transferred to headquarters battery, and I started running messages all through the forward observation areas and fire bases all through the DMZ. And one of the reasons why we did that was because communications sometimes were broken down, and messages came, what they call sit reps, situation reports of enemy in the area, things like that. And for some reason, the Marine Corps, they gave me a secret clearance, and they utilized it. So I did that for about 4 months, and we about 3 times a week we'd run these messages out to every fire base throughout the whole DMZ. So I got an opportunity to go everywhere in that whole area, and some really hot spots, and that's what I did for the last couple of months of my tour over there, and was interesting.
So what was your sidearm, I guess you would have to carry with you?
Uh, Actually, I didn't. I had an M14 rifle, and uh, I also carried a 45 pistol. Once I start running messages, secret messages, and things like that, I was given a 45 pistol, but I also kept an M14 with me, and I was, you know, when we went out, we were fully loaded. I mean, because we went out with a small convoy, and I'd have full gear on. I'd have a couple grenades with me, K-bar, 45 pistol, M14, uh, and we were loaded for bear in the event of an ambush or something like that, and because we rode up and down Route 9. Out towards Dong Ha, Con Tien, Jolin, all those outposts. I've been up as far north as you can possibly go, and still stay in South Vietnam. A place called Jolin, fire base up on Route 1. You could throw a baseball into North Vietnam. That's how close that fire base was. And so we make a couple trips there during the week, and swing back, going to Dong Ha, and then go back into Camp Carroll. And maybe the next day, they'd have us go in another direction, just to get information out to the officers at these fire bases. And in the event that we ever got ambushed, I was to destroy the messages in any way I could, and fortunately, we never got ambushed to the point where I had to destroy the messages. Got sniper fired a lot, but as we fly by, different areas, and but never got totally ambushed where we had to shoot it out, and so I didn't have to worry about destroying the message.
Okay. So you mentioned all the bases that you would go to. How was each base, like, were they different? Were they pretty much the same? I mean,
Well, each base is geographically different. Some were on a hill. Most of the bases all up in there, they were fire bases, which had maybe might have a artillery battery there, a company of infantry company there, and they pretty much lived in bunkers dug in the ground. There was no tents or anything like. They were way out there, forward observation bases. And most of those bases, they probably got hit a lot out there. They did get hit a lot. So they didn't have the luxury of living in a tent. They had to dig down and live in deep foxholes and things like that. And some were on the hills, like one was Hill 881. I was up a hill, and Con Tien was more towards the eastern part of Route 9, and Jolin was right off of Route 1. So we're all basically the same, just in different areas.
Okay. Did you keep up with your contacts at home as much as you could?
Yeah, I wrote home as much as I could, but I never really elaborated on what I was doing. I didn't want to get anybody upset. So
keep them calm.
Yeah, I just told things are doing great. And looking forward to rotating back home.
Knowing how it was now and what would go on and everything, before you, like, say you knew all this before you enlisted, and you said you'd want to be a Marine your whole life, and would you have still enlisted, and knowing you would go to Vietnam and knowing everything that would happen while you were there?
Yes, because I knew when I enlisted in 1966, the war was going on for a couple of years, and and this is probably the first television war, and in the I used to read Time magazine and Newsweek, and you would it brought the war right to you. So I knew that probably enlisting in the Marines was probably going to be a one-way ticket to Vietnam. Uh, but it didn't stop me. I went to serve my country, uh, and there was no other unit that I was going to serve with. At the time, I was ready to be drafted into the Army, and I made the decision just to go and see the Marine recruiter. And, I only signed up for 2 years because I wasn't sure, and so I signed up for 2 years active duty. Most of the time, guys were signing up for 3 or 4, but the Marine Corps would take you, at that time the Marines were taking it at 2, 3, 4, whatever you wanted to sign up for. So I went with the 2 years, and yeah, but I was ready to come home after Vietnam.
Mm-hmm. So you had said that this was the first televised war and everything. How did you feel about that?
Well, it was kind of, I guess when you're 18 years old and you're looking on TV, you're seeing what war's really like on television, I guess, and maybe it's at that age it's kind of exciting in a way. And then when you find out when you're really over there, there's no such thing as it's not exciting at all. It's scary as hell. It's your heart beats a million miles an hour. You don't know what you're going to do. So it's not that, but it looks that way. It seems to look like that. But the reality is, it's not. It is not, and you're darn glad to make it back, and I sure was happy to get back, and in one piece.
Okay, so coming home, you often remember stuff about when the soldiers came home from Vietnam, how it was kind of a hostile home.
Oh yeah, well, it's a good question. I didn't realize that the country was like so adamantly against the war in around '68 or whatever, end of '67 when I came back from Vietnam. And I experienced people being mad and mean to me, and when I first came home, I landed in Travis Air Force Base on my way home, trying to make a phone call home and tell everybody that I was in Travis Air Force Base and I'm heading towards Philadelphia. Well, I couldn't remember the home phone number. I was away from home for 2 years. I couldn't remember the phone number, and the phone number was unlisted. And the operator, and I told her that. I said, I just got off the plane from Vietnam. And she hung up on me. And I had no idea why she hung up on me. And I later found out, well, everybody hated us. And I guess so did that telephone operator. And so that was like, oh, welcome home, and I told that story to Tom Brokaw. And he has a book called The Greatest Generation. And I went and saw him. He had a night as book signing at the Constitution Center. So my wife and I went over, and we got to meet Tom Brokaw. And during the time he was talking on stage, he asked if anybody wanted to tell about their experiences in the military. And I told him this story with about 200 other people there. And I said to him, Mr. Brokaw, would have happened to a Marine coming home from the Pacific in World War II? He put his head was down in his big chair, and he just shook his head no. And so that's what happened to us when we came home. But our country has learned not to treat our warriors that way. As we can see, as they come home from Iraq and Afghanistan, we treat them as heroes, which they are. And we learned a lesson that was one of the lessons we learned from Vietnam, is that, these guys are going over there to defend our country because our government asked them to do. And whether you agree or disagree with the conflict, don't belittle and treat the soldiers and Marines and the way they did in Vietnam. It's a tough lesson to learn. I think we learned it though.
Okay. How did this affect you adjusting back to life as a civilian, I guess?
Well, I still had time to go in the Marine Corps, and I served the rest of my time in North Carolina. But when I did come home, when I finally got out and I went back to civilian life, there was still a lot of opposition to the war and the soldiers and Marines and all coming home. So I just assimilated into the society and never even mentioned that I was a Marine, and just went on about my business. And so that's how I just did it. I mean, people, once you become a civilian, nobody knows, if you don't tell them. So that's what I did. I just kept it quiet.
Okay. And one more question that I want to ask. This doesn't pertain to Vietnam, but just the Marines in general. If someone wanted to join the Marines, what would you recommend to them?
I would say go for it. And this is the reason why. Marine Corps, the things you learn from the Marine Corps will always be with you. Things such as confidence, courage, determination. These values, honor, these values will be with you always. And they served me, and so that's one good reason to join the Marine Corps. And the tradition, we get into tradition, there's no other service that has tradition as much as the Corps. Here I am, 40 some odd years out of the Corps, and still a member of the Marine Corps League, and still wear the uniform every now and then, and proud of it. And I wouldn't have it any other way. So I know a lot of parents are ones that are saying, oh my God, don't go in the Marine Corps, go into the Air Force or something like that. Well, that's good. They're all good services. There's no doubt. Every one of our services are excellent. But there's nothing like once a Marine, always a Marine. And that's something that you'll always carry with you. You wear a Marine Corps hat, and you go into a restaurant, and someone else might even say to you, now, thanks for serving. And it's kind of like, it's a good feeling. Yeah. And people say, well, join the Navy because you can become an electrician when you get out. Well, you know what? You can still become an electrician when you come out of the Marine Corps, even if you're a rifleman, because, you know, you'll have the confidence and the whatever it takes to do what you have to do, or do what you want to do. So that's something that you know, it just never leaves you. And so I'm real proud of it. And then you can be proud of being part of the smallest service in men, and one of the longest traditions that all our services have. It's just something different. So that's it.
Okay. Thank you for giving me this chance to interview on
Okay.
you on your military service and everything.
Yeah.
And I think that's it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.